So here we are. I hope you were able to at least give this an attempt to solve this equation by completing the square. So let's go ahead and go to the next step on our step-by-step process, and it says identify the coefficient of the x term. That's what the step-by-step process says, but really what it's saying is identify the term that has a variable that is not being squared. So I'll just start from the beginning. This is t squared, so this variable is being squared, so we don't want to look at this term. And we look here, this variable, or this term has the variable that is not squared. And we want to identify that coefficient. So the coefficient here is -4. Now the reason that we identify that -4 is because we want to know what we need to add to this side, and since it's an equation, we're going to need to add it to both sides. What do we need to add here to complete the square? What do we need to add to complete the square? Yeah, so if you're following along on In-Class Notes 8, Step 3 says identify the coefficient of the non-squared variable term, which is the -4, that's the coefficient, and then we want to half it and square it. So all I do is I divide this -4 by 2, and then I square it. So -4 divided by 2, that's -2, and we square it, and we get a positive number, +4. So 4 is what we want to add to both sides to complete the square. So here I do t squared minus 4t plus 4 is equal to 12, and then plus 4. Now, when we add this 4, that is the step where we are completing the square. We have now completed the square for this problem. Just go ahead and clean it up. Let's go ahead and combine the two constants on the right-hand side. So we've got t squared minus 4t plus 4 is equal to 12 plus 4, that's 16. So 16. Now, what do you think is going to be our next step to solve this problem? Yeah, so hopefully you were able to say that now we need to factor this left-hand side, and you can do this any way that you want to. You can use that step-by-step procedure that we covered yesterday, where you do a times c, and then you find all the numbers that multiply to give you that a times c, and then pick a pair that can be combined in some way to give you the -4, then you split the middle term up, and you group, and you factor, and you factor again. Or you can use that nice trick that I taught you that you can use whenever you're completing the square. Now it looks something like this. So we had a homework assignment where we had t squared minus 4t. And then remember on the worksheet that I gave you, I had like a plus blank. And we said that was equal to x and then blank and squared. Okay, so I'm going to put a blank here, a blank right there. And then I asked you on the worksheet what goes here and what goes here. So we already know what term needs to go here to complete the square. We've already found out that it's 4. So I can just go ahead and put that 4 into the equation here. But we said that this expression can immediately be written like this. And this is the factored form of this perfect square trinomial. So here we have a perfect square trinomial, which is the same as this part. This is a perfect square trinomial, and now we want to factor it. And the way that we figure out what goes in this blank is by looking at the coefficient of the non-squared variable term. So here we've got the coefficient of t. What do we do with this? What do we do with this coefficient to figure out what goes here? So hopefully you were able to say that all we need to do is just do -4, half it, and that gives me -2, and this is what goes inside the parentheses to factor this expression. So -2. So I can immediately write, what we're saying here is that this perfect square trinomial is equal to this in parentheses. Okay, so I can immediately write this part of our original expression in this form, where you have the x minus 2 squared. So let's just go ahead and do that. So the next step, I can just go straight to here, x minus 2. Actually, let's not use x. We're using t here, t, and then minus 2 squared. And to be consistent, really, that should be a t as well. Okay? Now we've got t minus 2 squared. T minus 2 squared is equal to the 16. Now, if you didn't understand this part, we've been practicing this over and over and over again for almost a month and a half. So if you do not understand this, I encourage you to go back and watch a few of the other educating videos that show you how to complete the square. But now, okay, this is not our final answer. We still need to solve for t. And when I say we need to solve for t, what that means is we need to know what t is equal to. So t will be equal to something. Now, if we want to get rid of this square, we do the opposite, that is take the square root. So I take the square root of both sides, take the square root of both sides, and you know that when we take the square root of a square, that just disappears, and I'm just left with what's underneath the square root is equal to, we take the square root of 16. We take the square root of 16, and we get 4, but don't forget, okay, after you take the square root, something else pops out here, and that is positive or negative 4. And the reason is because positive 4 times positive 4 will give you 16, and negative 4 times negative 4 will give you 16. So positive 4 and negative 4 are both solutions to the square root of 16. Now it's very straightforward to solve. Now all we have to do is just add 2 to both sides, add 2, and we get t is equal to 2 plus or minus 4. Alright, so we can separate this solution into 2. So basically what we find is t is equal to 2 plus 4, which is equal to 6 seconds, or we get 2 minus 4, which is equal to negative 2 seconds. Okay, so at this point we have found our 2 solutions to the problem. Okay, so this problem still has 2 solutions, either 6 seconds or negative 2 seconds. So what does this mean? It means that it either takes 6 seconds or negative 2 seconds for I'm trying to go back onto the other slide here. Okay, there we go. Now here's our picture. It's either going to either take 6 seconds or negative 2 seconds for this ball to reach position 0. That is where the ball hits the ground. Okay, so based off of that, based off of the context of this problem, even though you got 2 solutions by completing the square, you need to use your common sense to determine which solution is correct. Now, you tell me, which solution of these 2 do you think is the answer to this question? And hopefully you were able to say at this point that we cannot have a negative time. It is not possible to have a negative time. So all we do is we just cross out this as a possible solution, and we say that t has to be equal to 6 seconds. So t equals 6 seconds is the answer to this problem, and that tells us how long it takes for this ball to reach the ground. It takes 6 seconds. All right, now I hope you enjoyed that physics problem. Go ahead and go on to problem number 2. There are no more educating videos for the day. I just want you to practice this. Solve the next problem by factoring. And then the very last problem for the day, the third problem, is solving quadratic inequalities. Okay, so this entire packet, this entire assignment, is a review of working with quadratics. And the reason that I incorporated all of these is that way you can have a little bit more time to review for your test on Friday. Alright guys, if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks.